we've been hey, so I was just gonna start like couple Canadians talking about Canada.
Shit.
Go figure. And it was super shocked. In case you're watching this thousands of years in the future, this is the Yves La Rose that turned EOS around, and basically him and his team fixed the whole fucking thing. Now it's running.
Not yet. Not at all.
Yeah. I just like that.
But maybe 1,000 years down the line.
Right. Exactly. That's when everything will have worked out. EOS is running the solar system empire, and the Tao that is our human civilization. Anyway, so
everything's been rebalanced. Everything is good.
It's all good. It's rebalancing dynamically. The AI
Death Star was exploded. Everything's good. Yeah,
we're good now. It's like balance has been returned to the Force. Anyway, so we're gonna talk about all the stuff that's going on with EOS that's been going on, and I'm excited to do that. We were actually just shooting the shit before coming on air about Canada because we're both from there, and Vancouver Island, which is freaking fantastic, and that winter is dumb.
And winter where I am right now is in full force, or it's just started and it's already really cold. So Vancouver Island, we're talking about pipes freezing, how it rarely gets below zero, and so it's a big deal when it does.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've told everybody this before a bunch of times, but I'm originally from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, right? So like minus 40 for 9 months out of the year is totally normal. It gets down to 50 degrees, and I'm like Fahrenheit finally after about 15 years down in the States. I'm a wuss. Like I'm a total wuss. Like it's all of my northern cred is just absolutely gone.
It's gone.
No,
it's been too long.
Yeah, it has. Except that like being the beach, like all December, every time we go, my wife and I go walking out to the beach. I'm just like, it's December. I just say it over and over and over again. It's like, we've been here for 15 years, but
Yeah, but then it goes down to 15 degrees Celsius and like, it was a cold day today. What do you mean it's a cold day? 15, we're in shorts. Everything is good. This is amazing. But see, it always depends as well, like whether it's spring or fall. So fall 15 degrees, people are like, all right, it's getting chilly.
Different,
Spring 15 degrees, people are like, oh my God, flip-flops, shorts, everything is great. It's amazing. Because you just came out of 6 months of
100%. I remember really the second anything started melting at all, which in Yellowknife, like it was still below zero, but you didn't have sunlight, things are going to start to melt, and we'd be in shorts and sandals.
Well, spring skiing. It's like, it's March, it's minus 15, but it's sunny, so it's minus 15. You're in shorts, t-shirt, skiing on down the hill. It's crazy.
It is. All right, so let's dig into it here a little bit. Like I want to talk a little bit about what has been going on, just to kind of give people a little bit of context for where EOS is at and the challenges that blockchain has been navigating. But honestly, mostly I want to talk about your team and like your vision for what is coming, right? Like just so like we can go over all the other stuff for context. Like the drama stuff, I could not be less interested in that. Awesome. I know a lot of people are salivating over that, and they could fuck off. Like that. Like people are working too hard to try and realize visions, and there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be all that kind of stuff. It just like I'm infinitely more fascinated on what your vision is for the future.
It overshadows a lot of the good work that's been happening that great teams are working on and have been working out for a couple of months since the foundation essentially started, and there's been capital flowing to developers, builders, and that's what's unfortunate about the drama is it's really short-term noise that really in a month you'll forget about it, won't really matter. But the work that's been happening that the builders are doing, that's much more important, and that will be long-lasting, and that's got value in it, right?
Absolutely.
Good.
So let's maybe talk about what had you start the EOS Network Foundation in the first place.
Well, so I was working with EOS Nation, right? I was a co-founder of EOS Nation, block producer on EOS, and stepped down after a hack over the summer. So there was a DeFi hack for the vault. The vault that it was a smart contract that EOS Nation had created, but it was open source. It was audited and it was given away. Basically, the EOS Nation didn't even own the keys anymore. Essentially, it was MSIG, and so there was a bunch of other block producers and projects on that MSIG. But unfortunately, there was a hack. There was a quite a complex hack that occurred, and it drained most of it. However, the hacker, long story short, the hacker gave the keys away, felt really bad. After I resigned, essentially, I took responsibility for it, even though it had nothing really to do with me. But it happened under my watch, and it was something that we put out there. And I resigned. He felt bad, gave the keys, and all the funds were returned. So nobody lost anything. The hacker did lose something, though. So the hacker had EOS in an account in order to pay for the resources to create multiple accounts and cascading accounts. So he's the only one, or he or she, the only one that lost something because the EOS wasn't returned to that person. Otherwise, everybody was made whole. He did ask for it.
That's amazing. I didn't know how that ended. Like, I remember hearing about that hack over the summer, and then I didn't really hear. Like, I knew you had resigned. I didn't know that he gave everything back. That's
so after the block producers essentially stopped the accounts, stopped the hack while it was happening, because it created a script where he was cascading. He was creating multiple accounts, or he or she. I'm just saying. It's likely he, but it doesn't exclude it might be a she. Was cascading account creation, and as the hacker was cascading account creation, it was basically, I don't recall the dynamics, but I think it was like create an account and then transfer everything other than 5,000 EOS. Create an account, transfer everything other than 5,000 EOS, and doing this repeatedly. So it was happening every 20 seconds or so, or something like that, that an account was created, and the block producers were able to stop it and basically stop the thing as it was happening by predicting when the last account would be created, just on looking at the time that it would happen. And then, because basically every time an account's created, then you have to add an account to the list of whatever it is you want to stop, and you can't do that while it's happening. But you can predict that at this current rate and the amount of EOS that's left, if the script is really the script that we could predict, which was transfer everything, keep 5,000, transfer everything, keep 5,000, you could predict that in 2.5 hours or 3 hours, they'd be done. As long as you had monitoring tools in place that could script what the account is being created to. Is it a new account or was it a previous account? Because there's nothing stopping that person from transferring EOS to an account that already exists, in order to try and basically scam you. Let's say it was your account. He puts EOS in your account, and now if something happens to your account that affects you, it's not a new account. So anyways, all of that was happening. Script was monitoring all of this, got to the last account, boom, the BPs intervened, stopped. And because at that time, the BPs had tried to get in contact with the hacker to offer a ransom. There was no communication. It wasn't happening. So when that happened, boom, everything stopped. I resigned, I think it was the next morning. So less than 20 or roughly 24 hours after the hack occurred. And he started contacting me. He felt really bad. Because I think it was part of, he wasn't getting anything because it had been stopped. And so then he started engaging. It was like, it's kind of too late. You had your chance to be a white hat, not a black hat. Kind of failed at that. Felt bad. And then he started posting transactions on chain, essentially to apologize. So on chain. So he sent transactions to validate that he was indeed the hacker. Because you could showcase that you actually control.
That you have to control the account.
Yeah. So he did that, and then he published all of the keys as well. So like, here are all the keys. That way you guys can basically, I give you permission to take over these accounts retroactively, but I give you permission to take all over these accounts and basically return everything to everybody. It was a lot of work. It took, I think, about a week and a half or 2 weeks to really validate that everything was good, but everybody was made whole. And during that period of time, after I'd resigned, it really gave me a chance to reflect on what was missing in the ecosystem and what I could potentially do now with my newfound freedom. Because as a block producer, I really didn't have any type of time to do anything other than the projects that I were involved in with the block producer. And so it's not like I had hours in a day to be able to sit down, reflect, take notes, and figure out what was going to happen. Plus, I'm constrained by a block producer as well. So we knew that having a foundation would likely be good, but having a foundation led by a block producer, that would likely not be good. Hello, dog. So anyways, fast forward all after about a month and a half or 2 months, people started reaching out, people that I trusted, large token holders, people in the community, relationships that I built over the last couple of years in the ecosystem and said, listen, we really need a foundation, and we think that you'd be the right person to be able to lead this. We'll support you. Here's what it could look like. We started bouncing ideas, designing how that would work, legally how that would work, on chain how that would work, how the accountability would be part of it. Because we've never really had a problem of tokens on EOS. People like to talk about the burns that occurred, I think it was 2 years ago at this point, where it was a mistake. Not really, because we had tokens. We've always had tokens. Tokens are not a problem. What we haven't had is a mechanism to use those tokens, and who would be in a position to use those tokens. And so we kind of started talking about all of that, designing, architecting what this would look like, seeing whether or not there's even support or there'd even be interest in this. And then one thing led to the next, and end of August, the foundation was created, funds were transferred, the inflation was turned back on in order to earmark for future funds, and the work really started. August 25th or so is when things officially launched on chain, and legal, accounting, all of that then occurred afterwards, and relatively quick. And now the foundation is a non-for-profit, non-soliciting corporation in Canada that runs on EOS, and the bylaws, everything is on EOS. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, this goes back to, guys, in the genesis for EOS or whatever. It was a very small, but invested, you believed in the vision, whatever. And of course, everybody now knows, look, Block One sold a story, or the ecosystem did, or whatever, that we're going to raise a bunch of money, and it'll end up being used to basically build projects on this blockchain. They raised $4 billion, whatever it was, and then started funding projects on Ethereum because why not? It's like
because there's a traditional VC, and there's more money to be made, and it was maybe a safer bet, and the way that the agreements were set were maybe not incentivizing building on EOS or deploying capital on EOS, right. and the story goes on. Right.
So the thing that I really want to focus on talking to you, and that I hope, usually we have a lot more people watching right now. Like, I'm going to share this, every day for the next month, just because it's Christmas, whatever. Because I think people really need to connect with what you personally and your team ultimately ended up doing. Because there's a lot of people complaining about what Block One didn't do, right? I've been one of those talking head jackasses over the last year and a half who have been critical of that, right? And instead, you're like, yeah, hold my beer, right? So we've got, to your point, we've got all these tokens.
It's kind of like that.
We all agree and believe in this vision that collectively we could pool resources and create a more valuable network and collection of, or ecosystem of products through the EOS blockchain. So why don't we just, do it instead of waiting for people to do it? And I'm really proud of you guys for doing that. I mean, getting that started. So could you maybe talk a little bit about how the first little bit of that has gone?
Sure. So we started off with the ask was to use, or to gain access to, essentially, the RAM fees and name fees that had accumulated prior to Rex going live, the resource exchange on EOS. Okay. So prior to that period, so now every time you buy a premium name on EOS, or whenever you buy RAM, their fees, their network fees, system fees, right, essentially, and those now go into Rex. The system is very little used, and so there's very little going into there. But prior to, especially right after the network launch, there was a significant amount of usage of both those systems, the name fees and the RAM fees, or the premium names and the purchasing of RAM. And so there'd been 3.5 million EOS accumulated prior to that. So those were essentially system tokens that had been accumulated for system administrative fees, essentially, for functions of the system. Yeah. And so the ask was to start off by being able to use those. And so that gave us a little bit of leeway, equivalent to about a Series A. So at the time, roughly 15, 60 million US dollars that we knew, all right, here's kind of like a VC fund or capital injection of roughly $16 million. Mm-hmm. What do you think you can do with that? And so the first couple of things we started doing, obviously, is the incorporation setting up the entity so it could be a real entity, so that we could get into contracts, arrangements with real, with other corporations, with other entities. But then doing that in Canada, so we set it up in Canada, but doing it also in a way that it would ensure that we wouldn't be replicating kind of the faults that we saw. And it's possible that we'll also make mistakes, and we've already made mistakes.
Right.
But one thing we wanted to ensure was that whatever it is we created wasn't, at least as much as possible, not recreating what we saw with the mistakes in other projects, or even with Block One, for example, where the funds could potentially be held in a private entity that was for profit. So we set it up as a nonprofit, and the whole mission and mandate was, or is, to be able to enable developers, businesses, and individuals to build on EOS. So essentially, we're funding public goods. We're funding the things that, to a certain extent, were being funded when the chain launched by the block producers. But in that system, there was very little accountability. So the funds, I call them the golden years of being a BP. EOS Nation wasn't a BP at that time, so I really didn't benefit from that when I was there. But the idea was that there was money flowing. There was quite a lot of money flowing. You're basically getting inflation from the ecosystem, and it was showing up daily. As every block, you're getting funds, and so it's quite empowering for those original block producers to be able to build tools. And to be able to build applications and basically lay the groundwork for the ecosystem. The problem, one of the problems essentially was, because it's DPoS, the mechanism to be able to go and get that funding was through votes, and you need to compete. And so essentially, you and I, let's say we're competing block producers, you might not even want to be a block producer. The only way for you to be able to gain access to network funding, to be an employee of the network, was to run a block producer. And then in order to differentiate yourself from me, then instead of us working together, oftentimes what happened was that we replicated our work in order to build a tool or some of that. But then you build a tool, I build a tool. We now have two competing tools, no standardization, no accountability from the system as well as to whether or not the way that you built the tool was cost effective. So maybe for you to build the tool cost $1 million, for me to build the tool cost $100,000. So there's very little of that. And so the system really wasn't designed very well, I think, at first, because in the white paper, the EOS white paper, there was always going to be a WPS. Networks didn't launch with a WPS.
Well, okay, what's a WPS?
A worker proposal system, which essentially the foundation kind of fulfills that role right now. So it's a means by which the system can allocate funding to things that are non-block production. Right? At the onset, when EOS launched, the idea was always going to be the block producers produce blocks. The worker proposal system is where people would go and say, hey, I don't want to run a block producer. I just want to build an app, or I've got an idea for X, Y, Z, or I want to build this tool, or I want to build this plugin, or whatever it is. The system would be able to fund you. But because we never had that worker proposal system, everything got funneled into block producers. Because it's DPoS, then it became a really big competition. Very little oversight, a lot of replication. So the ENF, kind of, when I took that time to look at that, and when I was a block producer, we tried to do a worker proposal system on a few occasions, and ultimately always didn't even launch. Basically, got kiboshed every time. And so part of the idea was, all right, take from that.
What kiboshed it? Sorry.
It's a good question. The first. What was the first one? I guess the last one that was really that had gotten a lot of traction was the one that we designed while we were in Rio at the EOS Community Conference in Rio in 2019, I believe. At this point, the year escapes me. It might be 2018, but I think it's 2019. And the idea was to replicate it off of what Dash did, off of what we had learned from doing a worker proposal system in BOSS that EOS Nation designed as well, and then kind of adapting everything to the reality of EOS. Ultimately, Block One wasn't supportive of it, and we were left with the decision of the network was supportive of it. We had, I think, the largest amount of block producers that have ever voted on something. So it was 36 or 38 block producers. So the majority of the block producers, standby and producing, were on board with this, but Block One wasn't on board with this. And the idea that we were left with was, well, do we launch something where there's an entity that, this wasn't the first time, that says, hey, we're not supportive of this. We'll let you do what you can do whatever you want, but then they dangle these little carrots, or they make these kind of veiled threats of, well, if you do this, though, we might not do X, or we might not do Y, or we might not use the chain for whatever. And so we're left with the decision of, well, they say they want to get to the table. They say that they want to build something in partnership with us. They just don't like the current system. And if we build something together, they'll be able to provide way more funding and get the support. And so, well, do we want this entity with us, or do we want this entity potentially leaving because of that? Ultimately decided, all right, let's try to do something with them. Bad decision. It dragged out for over a year before we even saw, an intent, public intent, and that's basically Pomelo, what you see right now.
Okay.
And then after the intent, then the work starts, and so the deployment of Pomelo took another further 6 months after that, right? So it just delayed everything, and that's just one example of the community coming together to try and fill that void that we saw, and then being kiboshed by Block One on that specific occasion. And so with the ENF, the idea was, fuck Block One. We need this. It doesn't matter. We've been through this before. Let's just do it.
Right.
Like you said, just hold my beer. We're just doing it. We're not even asking for their feedback. It's irrelevant. We've been through this before.
Yeah.
They will, try to insert themselves in the system by saying they can't, but they can, but they don't, and they won't, and then it'll be diluted, and we'll be at this again.
Yeah. So just like, and this is maybe I might be inferring too much, and if I am, please let me know. When it comes to Block One, the whether they were going to do voice on EOS or not was like a question for a long time. And bullish, like they're going to come and it's going to be built on EOS or whatever. And I just fundamentally, the second that I found out that they were even considering not having an EOS based token for voice, I'm like, they're gone, they're done. Like this is just fiction.
One thing after the next, right?
Right. And it sounded like you were saying they were like holding that, like, oh, if you guys make this worker proposal system, like maybe we're not going to be able to build bullish on EOS. Like, is that what they were saying?
Yeah. Like, oh, we might not be able to. Might not be able to deploy.
Oh fuck! I was trying
whatever
to
products that we're trying to do, or whatever we're working on. That, hey, trust us. It's coming soon. It's coming soon. Now we might need to reconsider. Funding, you're going to essentially be using inflation, but hey, we've got all this money that maybe we could be able to, so that way you wouldn't be using inflation. It's basically the same song and tune that at this point we just got tired of, leading to then what happened last week or 2 weeks ago at this point. But we're just, all right, you clearly don't really want to be here. You're just delaying the inevitable. I think both parties ultimately, it's kind of like you're in a bad relationship and both of them want to break up, but none of them want to make the first move for some reason. But if that happens, then both of them are extremely happy because they've been wanting this forever. Well, it's essentially what happened with Block One. That's the feeling anyways. And it's really not that bad. Like, it's really not a bad breakup. So it doesn't excuse what they've done. And there's clearly a lot of healing that needs to occur.
Right.
But the breakup itself was relatively clean. And this is just, that example of the WPS is just one example of what has occurred repeatedly over the last 3 years, where the community tries to stand up on their own. They figure out ways to do it. They get the majority of the community support, either through the referendums, through chats, through on-chain token holder weight, ultimately leading to block producers signing for a 15 out of 21 type of MSIG. And every time it's the same song and tune. It's like, just give us a little bit more time. We're working on this crazy, amazing thing that's going to be revolutionary. And then,
it just seems so justifiable to not trust that.
So the ENF, when it decided to launch a foundation, that was one of the things that Block One did contact us, because we had made it public that we were going to be working on this. And I said, listen, I don't really care at this point. I don't really want your support. I don't need your support. I don't care if you're against it. It's better if you're not participating in this, ultimately, because that you're limited. I know that you're limited. We're just going to lead to another, bad failed expectations. Let's just not get into that again. Let's just do our own thing. And then it launched. The NF launched, and yeah, so far we've been deploying quite a lot of capital. We've deployed around 2 million EOS worth of capital back into the ecosystem. So that's depending on the token price. And at the time of when those conversions occurred, it's about, let's say $10 million or so that's been deployed in the ecosystem, directly to developers, directly to builders, directly to community members.
What's getting built?
It's a really good question. I mean, the good example is Pomelo. So Pomelo season 1, the ENF provided a matching pool of $500,000, and the amounts raised through direct contributions, I believe around the end result was around $133,000. So that's $633,000 that went into, I don't recall the number of projects. I know that there was something like 200 something applicants, maybe 100 something shortlist, which were approved as being public goods. Ultimately, 50 or so projects got substantive sums. We're talking about, I think the highest paid projects got roughly $50,000, $60,000 worth of matching plus whatever they raised. So some projects received $70,000, $80,000, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I think it's maybe closer to 60,
around that.
80.
Sure.
But yeah, we've got quite a lot of teams that are getting funding directly from now this matching and through Pomelo, and then through their peers through the community. So there's tons of stuff happening in there. Base level stuff like APIs to DeFi plugins or some gaming engines, some documentation, some educational material, some wallets, or kind of more UI type front facing portals. Just a wide range of different offerings that are all public goods. So everything needed to be a public good. So it needs to be non-excludable and non-rivalrous, which means that anybody can use it. There's no cost to use it, or there's no cost to benefit from that thing that essentially is being funded. And it doesn't matter how many people use it. So it's non-rivalrous, as in you and I can both use it at the same time. It's irrelevant. There can be 1,000 people. It's irrelevant. So there's no maximum on how many people can benefit from that public good.
That's cool.
So that's one of the things. Pomelo is really, really good. And then the working groups. The working groups were now up to 5 different working groups that are working towards blue papers that'll be released by the end of January. I'm not sure if all 4 will be released by the end of January. I'm not sure if all 4 will be. I think 2 or 3 will. Maybe there's 1 or 2 that'll be somewhere in February instead, because they started a little bit later. So we've got API Plus, Wallet Plus, Core Plus, and Audit Plus. And so they're working on their particular expertise. So these are all either block producers or product owners within EOS, but most of them are multi-chain. So we've got block producers on, or entities, let's say, or people that are working on Ultra, Telos, EOS, Wax, I think maybe even Theo, Proton. So block producers that are wide ranging in where they produce, or entities that have products on multiple chains. And they're looking at essentially research on, within that particular vein, what could it look like, or what are we missing? What are other people doing? What have we been doing? Where should we go? So they're not going to be developing anything per se within that working group at this time. It's really doing an environmental scan of where should we be going? And then ultimately that blue paper will be kind of a roadmap. But the reason why we call it blue paper, it's a name that didn't really exist before, is there'll be components of a white paper, a yellow paper, an RFP, and a roadmap kind of combined into one. We call it the blue paper. So that will be presented to the public and say, here's what we've been doing. Here's the research we've been doing. This is the first time that EOS has had funds or capital to be directed to teams to think about what they should do instead of just doing things. All right, if we had money to just look at everything, what are we doing? What have we been doing? What are other people doing? What worked? What didn't work? Where should we go? And publish that. That's the first time we've ever had that. So that's what's going to come out with the blue papers within those 4 respective veins. Then there's also EVM Plus, which is another working group. They're working on EVM implementation on EOS, because we kind of dropped the ball on that. Block 1 did a bounty, but the bounty was very specific. There was no, it wasn't a full solution. Saeed, who won the bounty, did a tremendous job. He did what they asked, But what they asked wasn't to then have EVM on EOS running and be maintained, etc. So it's kind of completing that. Okay. And so EOS Argentina is working on that. And the idea is to have early to mid-spring to have EVM compatibility on chain, learning from, so they're working, Argentina is working with Saeed as an advisor, but also with Telos because they've deployed their EVM.
I was going to say, I thought I saw
did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So, working with them as well to see what that could look like and ideally make it somewhat compatible because we all share the same code base with Node EOS or Node OS. And so that's one of the working groups. Also working on a few other working groups that haven't been released yet. But that style of vein or that type of vision. And big idea with that is that if we have a roadmap or if we know where we're going or if people have an idea of where we're going, then they can see where they might fit in the picture. So if we've got a developer, a community member, a business, whatever it is, an investor, they just want to know where you're going. Where's this ship heading? And we've never really had that before. The only time we really had that was with the white paper for the token sale for EOS. But since then, we've never really had any white paper or we've never had any roadmap. So the idea is
certainly not an updating one, right? Exactly.
Not something as extensive as this. So one of the teams, for example, Core Plus, it wouldn't surprise me that their blue paper is going to be over 100 pages long. So it's extensive, and so multiply that by 4, and then we're adding others as well. Basically, it's going to be a lot of academic research that goes into these papers to showcase people. Here's where we're heading. Here's where we're not heading. Here's why also we're not heading there. Here's where other people went. Here's why we're choosing to take some of that, but not all of it, right? So all of that, so that everybody kind of gets an idea of where they can see if they fit in the picture, where they fit in the picture, and then through other things like Eden or Pomelo, and then direct grants from the foundation that will also start at some point. The idea is, all right, Corey, you fit here because there's a void or there's a gap here. And now you know this. But then how do you access capital or compensation to be able to do that particular function that maybe you've got the skill set to do that the network has highlighted is needed? Yeah. That's where it's going to be the Eden or the Pomelo or the direct grants, so that ultimately as many people as possible that have a particular skill set that we're able to validate, that the network has pre-validated it needs and it requires, that we can essentially match that as efficiently as possible to start getting people to come back to EOS and build on EOS. And that starts with having a vision. That starts with having here's where we think we're going. And then that might not be exactly where we go, but that will change, right? So the working groups will produce blue papers, but the idea is those will be evergreen. And ideally, we keep funding teams to keep on innovating, keep on redoing research on this.
I mean, that's
so that everybody knows where we're going as much as possible.
I have yet to hear of a network that's doing that, right? Like that.
Ethereum kind of has that. I mean, that's. I guess I'm not sure anybody has that like that. We're
right. Well, I think
we're starting from behind.
Right.
We're able to learn from others, right?
Right.
And so that's a huge advantage. Disadvantage is we need to run 2 or 3 times faster just to catch up. Running at regular speed just gets us to stay at the same pace.
No, it totally makes sense, and I agree with you on Ethereum. They just sort of had all this sort of institutional momentum, so it wasn't really registering. But I like the idea that you can consciously as a community, as a network, we're gonna not produce one data-centric vision for the future, but 4.
And even more than that, right? And
right.
That's part of one thing that we learned from Block 1 is instead of having all our eggs in one basket, waiting for one entity, let's have multiple, not competing entities, because that's kind of what we had when the network launched. Let's have an entity that was born out of decentralization that is accountable to the system, because that's what's different about the ENF as well. All these other chains launched with foundations. They launched with tokens, and they already had a mandate at launch. Whereas in our case, we have to continuously fight for the inflation. We have to continuously fight to showcase that we add value. And then we ideally stay very, very lean, and we just redistribute as much as possible down to the community, or widespread to the community. It's not down, but it's as broad as possible. But we keep them accountable. So instead of a free lunch, it's like, all right, what are you going to do? Are you capable of doing that? At this point, it's relatively easy because a lot of the teams have been doing job interviews for the last 3 years. We know what they're capable of. They've been doing it despite everything. At some point, that will become harder. At some point, this is really inward focused, but we're starting to look outward as well. How can we then attract people externally to be able to come in and fulfill those functions? That's going to require interacting with people that we don't know. And so then the process of job interview, figuring out whether or not those people are capable of, will become more of a challenge. Right now, it's kind of easy. We already know.
Exactly. Like all the people to build each specific part, have done similar things or that.
You've been doing this particular thing for 3 years. I know you can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to send me your resume. Do you want the contract? Because I need you to build that specific thing. Right. Or tell me what you think we should build based on the expertise that you have, right?
Yeah.
And then the recognition grants. So we also sent 35, I believe, ultimately in the end, 35 recognition grants of $100,000 to 35 different projects that had stuck with EOS, that were still operating on EOS, that were seen as a key part of the community, or a key part of a service that people would use or that we're still using. Mm-hmm. And this was all outward focused. So nobody applied. The ENF selected 35. I think it was 36 in the end, but then one didn't work out. And everybody got the same. And it was just basically a thank you from the network as a placeholder until we have the means to be able to accept applications. So those three things, I think, are the big things that we've been working on that concretely you could see. We really wanted to ensure we still don't have certain systems in place. Like I talked about a grant framework and doing grants as a sponsorship. We knew that if we wait until we have an application process and that process is fleshed out and then it's public so that everybody knows, well, that means that I won't be able to give anything for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it may be. And we didn't want to do that. We've seen what happens when you do that. You're trying to build something that's already good at the offset. Let's just do some quick wins. So we did quick wins, kind of placeholders, while we're building the system, so that continuously we can build a track record, which means that we're operating very horizontally, which means that we won't be as efficient as if, let's say, we waited. So a good example would be the working groups. It might be more efficient to have one, they do their blue paper, then the second one starts, and the third, so there's less overlap, there's less waste. But what that means is you're not getting anything for another year. Well, you're not getting anything for another 18 months.
You've hit on exactly what the network needs right now.
Just need to do stuff.
You have to prove it, right? Like every single time Block One has said anything over the last year, that's a good story, bro. Show me, right?
Exactly.
If you can at all, I'll freaking praise you to the ends of the earth.
Yeah, right? Of course,
100%. But I mean, and it never happens, like ever, right? So it's really clutch that your first move was, and I mean everything that I've done over the last year and a half anyway, like just MVP, prove the concept, iterate, right? And so you're basically going into that
iterations,
into an ecosystem that desperately needs a goddamn win. Right? So
we're just operating like multi-threaded at this point. So we're doing a bunch of different things. So essentially every week we've been releasing something. We haven't skipped 1 week where we've done one article or something that's happened that's tangible, that's concrete, that's not a hey, it's coming in the future type of thing. It's every week there's been something that's happening. And then as we do that, we build a track record. So we justify to the system the function is somewhat useful and it's value add. And so we just build off of each other. But ultimately, if there's no value at any point, the system can cut us off. Right. So there's accountability in the system as well, where at any point, if the system believes that there's abuse, there's negligence, there's no value created, see you later, Eve, see you later, ENF. And so the incentives are very much aligned. If we do provide good, and for the teams that are getting the funding as well, right? So it's not just the ENF, it's, hey, the ENF is selecting Corey and it's saying, hey, Corey, you've been doing this. We want you to do this. Can you do this? You're like, yes, I want to do this. If you don't do a good job, you might also shoot yourself in the foot, because for the first time, there are funds flowing to the content creators, to the developers, etc. So right now, the people they're working their asses off. I told you the blue papers are supposed to be out by the end of January, but to get them out by the end of January, the timeline is for them to have them done by the end of December. We've got Christmas break right now, or holidays, but that's not a thing. But still, that exists. Like you said, you're at your in-laws. And so the people are working 16, 18-hour days every day for the last couple of weeks to try and get that. Because once that's done, they need to be translated, they need to be proofread, they need to be formatted, they need to be branded. Like there's a lot of administrative boring stuff essentially in order to give not just the content weight, but to give the presentation weight. Because that's one big part that EOS has been missing over the last couple of years is proper presentation of content. And I think there was too much focus on making sure that the content is as beautiful as possible and that the content itself is as amazing as possible. And so see you in 2 years type of thing, because by the time we get there, it's going to take forever.
Right. Well, that to me, and maybe that's the sort of old school VC kind of thing, right? I don't know where that comes from, but like, have you met cryptocurrency, blockchain, NFTs? We do not sleep. And the way this is going to be in 3 months is not the way it is now. Period.
That's okay. Yeah.
It's awesome. But if you're like,
exactly.
we have this thing that we designed 3 months ago that we're releasing now that we're going to take more than 25 minutes prettying up. No, that's not how this works.
I know. This is, I mean, we're in a nascent ecosystem where everybody's working crazy and everything is evolving so rapidly that, just like you mentioned, if you're trying to make it perfect, by the time you actually release it, it's not perfect anymore because everybody 100%. Else, it's too late. You've already missed the boat. And so it's the balance, right? So there also needs to be a don't produce garbage. Yeah. And so that's where people are working really, really, really hard because they want to produce something of quality within the timeline they have, recognizing that we need to produce consistently, continuously as well, and frequently.
100%.
But the big thing I say to everybody at the onset is we will make mistakes. That's fine. One of our big issues is we were afraid to make mistakes. And so we don't try, right? Yeah. Never try, never fail, or you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. We will 100%. Make mistakes. There will be waste in the system. But the alternative is not doing anything. And we've seen how that goes. It doesn't lead to anything. And we keep dropping. We keep losing people. So, it's really, this is kind of a Hail Mary.
But this is how things evolve ultimately, though, right? Like you've reconnected with what made the idea beautiful in the first place. And you're just like getting rid of all things like, and again, like you can go too fast, right? Like we launched a Blue Dac on Wax. Again, like launched a functional MVP, and I started like, oh, we got to launch community pools. We went too fast. Community pools is fucking broken. Like it's gonna take us a month and a half to fix it, right? But like we're pushing the boundaries of that thing, and all the teams that I've worked with, like permission to fail is absolute, as long as there's
need to be Again, there's balance. But we've definitely been on one side way more than the other.
Right. Exactly. That's right? I mean, you can.
And if you have strong community, this is what's ultimately blockchains are about the community. There's been a couple of messages or tweets that have been going around how Web3 is just really replicating Web2 because it's still in the hands of VCs and it's still in the hands of a few large investors, etc. I don't agree. Ultimately, blockchain is in the hands of community, and we've really seen that specifically within this community. The community means so much. The community is everything. Even if you have capital, but you have no community, you're lost. If you have community and you make mistakes, but everybody's on board and everybody understands and everybody is still essentially feels part of that, feels part of the journey and still basically feels fulfilled or feels like they're part of it, you can make, that buys you the opportunity to make mistakes and to keep reiterating, and that feeds off of each other.
Right.
And so you're able to, like what you just mentioned, you're able to deploy things that might not be picture perfect, but your community is going to be key to, helping you fix those bugs, to telling you what those bugs are, to be able to do, to also innovate as quickly as possible because they want to be part of it, because they really are part of it. As token holders, they really are shareholders of whatever it is being built on that network. It's not bullshit. It's not just a narrative to, paint a pretty picture checkbox. It's real.
It's real. It's like everyone being able to be part of, the startup culture in Silicon Valley. Whereas before, like you couldn't be, without being an accredited investor, like good luck. Like you can't be anywhere near that. And now we get to do it, to your point, as a community, and that it's fun.
Live and die as a community, right?
Frustrating as hell sometimes, but I think like it's such a privilege to be able to do it. And honestly, I'm really grateful for this conversation. Selfishly, frankly, just to be reminded that there was a reason that we.
I like these conversations because we're talking about the underlying. How do I even put this? The conversation right now, the conversation that we're having right now is talking about the underlying reason why blockchains exist and how they exist and what makes the power of a blockchain, etc. That level of discourse is usually not as present because people want to know specifically when is your next release date on this particular product because I want to make money. I think it was who was it? The what's his name? He very famous, the Andre Kroner. Andre created a bunch of DeFi and Ethereum, and for some Kanye. You don't know Kanye? Kanye created all the super famous Ethereum DeFi over the summer and stuff. Okay. And he published an article. I think it was part 2 of a series, but maybe early in the summer or midsummer that just passed. And he was saying, as a DeFi developer, basically people don't give a shit what you're building on. They just want to make money. And by the time you release something, they're already talking about, but where's the next thing? And where's the next thing? And where's the next thing? And it's incredibly frustrating because like I'm trying to build stuff. I'm actually creating something that I believe is valuable, that I believe in, that I'm passionate about. And that's being drowned out by the people who really just are here to make a few bucks, which is fine. Those people are incredibly useful in the ecosystem as well. But as a developer, it's extremely frustrating. Just let me enjoy the fact that I'm building something that people appreciate. It's being used. I think he's the one who did sushi. I'm not too sure. Anyways, like he's built DeFi where there's been billions of dollars of total value locked within a few days. It's like, you know how amazing that is from a developer's point of view to build something that people connect with. That's what he focuses on, but then it gets drowned out by kind of these superficial type of discussions or stuff. So I like this level of discourse because it's really been the premise of why I do this.
Right. Yeah. No, and even just the reminder for me, again, I'm really, really grateful for it. You know, like with Uplift, you know, having speculators or like people just coming in and I mean, we started booting them out of the Telegram early. Like any kind of FUD, any kind of impatience. Like this, we live here. Like we don't need you.
Exactly.
I invested, blah, 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 blah. Good story, bro. You can sell that NFT anytime you want. We're going to take our time and keep iterating, which we like, you know, we've executed a ridiculous amount of our vision in the first 9 months, right? Right. And you know, again, like constructive criticism, all that stuff is completely and totally great. It's necessary, frankly. And having everybody, you know, having people come in to take part of these things. And I think there's a lot of people that are very new at, you know, being able to invest in something and seeing just absolutely ridiculous gains, which are totally possible here all the time, you know, and they're small cap, you know, markets, especially on Wax and EOS. Every once in a while you get super lucky and you think that this is just
you buy an NFT for $5 and 2 months later it's worth $300,000. Like what the
like
hell just happened?
Exactly. Things are weird. But then that sets
the tone for it should always be that way.
Oh man, so many people in the Uplift were like, hey, why isn't my piece of land worth like the same as Decentraland? How old is Decentraland? 5 years. Fuck off for 4 years. like
it's tough. It's tough.
It is.
Well, and see, the thing is, then sometimes they do hit the jackpot, and so that's important, right? Speculators are incredibly important because they bring capital, and it does bring hype, etc. But realistically, you only always hear of the successes, right? So we hear of Decentraland. How many other, metaverses were created, ultimately failed that you've never even heard of, or that still currently exist that are not, that level? It's quite a lot. So you hear of the successful ones, but you're like, I'm just trying to make it. Just give me you really believe in this. Give me a chance to be able to try and build it.
Right. I've been trying to remind people, like, because we have a tower in the Uplift where we put gratitudes up for our team. Right. We've been doing it since the first month that we actually put the team together, and every month we add a floor. And actually, I started right at ground level, which in Minecraft is about 60 blocks, 60 meters underneath the ocean, right? So a couple months ago, it actually came up out so you can actually see it. Nice. And we're on the 9th floor. How many
floors? 9 floors. That's awesome.
9 floors.
1 block at a time. Wow.
What's that? Yeah.
One block at a time. So how many blocks on a floor? Is it every day you're doing this, or?
Yeah, well, so we do. I
knew of the one from the people on the show. I didn't know that you do one with the team internally.
Right next
awesome.
door.
That's awesome.
And people didn't know it was there until it burst out of the ocean. Now it's like a giant building or whatever, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I'd say it's probably about 10 blocks per floor, so about 10 meters of floor, give or take.
All right, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
And that lives
Yeah.
forever. That's
It does.
awesome.
That's the
That's so
persistent
cool
thing
about
for
it.
me. That's the metaverse. We've been talking
One
to
block at a time. One
one
block at a time.
right. We've been and that persistent thing. 'Cause there's a lot of people that use the metaverse term in ways that I find indefensible, frankly. But that I'm super biased though, right? So for me, metaverse being a persistent world where you're literally encoding your history and your culture into the firmament that you can then go and visit and hang out with other people, right? Is sort of it's been our focus because it's what we're built, right? So obviously it's kind of biased, yes, 100%.
Of course, but that's
Yeah.
the world that you're trying to create, right?
Right.
But then when you go back in your world, that's the cool part is you'll be able to in 2 years and 3 years go back to the bottom of the ocean floor and like, remember when we used to be on block number 5 and now we have 5,000 blocks or whatever, and you'll be able to actually you'll probably get lost one night where you're having a couple of drinks and just read every single message and like shed a couple of tears while you're like, it's amazing.
It already happened, right?
That's your world. Like that's yours. It really is your world.
Right. When we first started this server that ultimately became the Uplift, it started right at the beginning of the pandemic. We were doing like research on doing podcasting from inside video games or whatever. Just like that's how it all kind of started. And then nobody could leave their house. So we started inviting people to come in to our server and just hang out. Right.
Yeah.
And just like friends or whatever. And, then it became like every Sunday, we're going to put some gratitudes up and just kind of have these little get-togethers or whatever. And I built, what I call Cathedral 1.0 now, which I thought was a really massive building. Because I've never built in Minecraft before or whatever. And it's full of mine and my friends and my family's gratitudes from a dark time. But we shared sunrises every Sunday together. Yeah. And I like the whole shedding a tear thing. Like I'm almost doing it now. Like going into that building and standing there. It has some feels like it's really, really intense, right? And that's a year ago. So like 5 years from now,
you're able to share that with other people within the same realm, right?
So you could go there. You can go there right now. It's in Old World. You just take the freaking rail from Cathedral 2.0 and you can stand there and catch a sunrise, right? And that kind of history now, it's not just us building it. I think the reason why I get kind of acclaimed thinking about it is that there are hundreds of really, really awesome projects, games, people, communities that are building that kind of thing all over the Uplift right now. That a year from now, they're going to come in and walk into that or like, bring a reporter, which is one of the things I, did or whatever, into something that they've built and be like, yeah, like this was new a year ago, right?
It's hard to, so I went to the dentist 2 weeks ago or so. And my dentist knows that I'm in the blockchain space, but he doesn't really understand the blockchain so much. But every time I go, which is twice or 3 times a year for a cleaning type of thing, we always talk about it. And the last time I went 2 weeks ago, he's like, "Hey, what do you think of that Facebook Meta thing, the Metaverse?" And so we talked about Metaverse for about 30 minutes or so, and he's 60, 62, I think. 66, yeah, somewhere around that. I think, yeah, 62. And so I tried to explain to him. And I tried to explain to him in the context of like what you just said, of the pandemic, people not being able to get together, but also some people preferring to get together virtually, either because they are far apart and this is their way of connecting, right? You get nothing to do with the pandemic. I have family on Vancouver Island. I'm at the other end of the country. Hey, instead of getting on a phone call like people used to do, want to just hang out on Zoom? And at some point, hey, want to just go watch a movie in the metaverse, watching a movie together where I can turn and you're there beside me, or want to go have a drink? I'll have a drink. You'll have a drink. We'll go sit in a bar. It just, to add a little bit of realism to this distance that between us. And so I tried to explain that to him, and it's like, not sure I get it. I still want to meet people in real life. You'll be able to meet people in real life. That's not a problem. Also.
Right.
But this is like an extra. And some people, this might be even more comfortable for them. And for your kids and your grandkids, because he's got grandkids, like they'll grow up with this as being normal. Right? I grew up with a Nintendo. I got the first Nintendo in 1988. I got my Nintendo. And I remember playing and inviting friends over and stuff. Well, now be able to play or interact, but being wherever you are and in a completely immersive type of world. I'm like, that's got appeal to people. If I had that when I kind of missed the boat as well, in the sense that I'm a little bit older now. I can imagine kids growing up where the metaverse is all they've known. This is what video games are, and this is what VR is, etc.
Right.
Where for them, this is entertainment. This is how it works, and so they just don't know anything else. And so when they'd look at playing on a tablet or something like that, I'd be like, this is cool, but I want to be in it. I want to be in the game. I know that you can be in the game or in the world.
Right.
Still doesn't get it. Still doesn't get the appeal, but clearly that's where we're going. And what you just mentioned with shedding a tear, the cathedral going back, that particular place, and it really is a place because you're in it.
Right.
That particular place invokes actual chemical reaction in you that will bring back memories, real emotions. That's amazing. That's incredible. That's so cool. And like, you build it. It's not even just that you went somewhere. You built that thing. That's amazing.
Right. And this is where I talk about Sue and her daughter Katie, who they don't live close together, right? So the pandemic, they weren't able to see each other anyway. And they came in. Neither one of them had ever built in Minecraft before. I think it's just east of Cathedral 2.0, the big ridiculous cathedral that I built. They started building just like, we're just gonna build like a little house. Cool. It's like a sprawling ranch. Like it's utterly ridiculous, right? And it really is to me now, and to them as well. It's like it's this symbol of them spending like many hours together. Like when the pandemic, like spent way more time together during the pandemic than they had in a long time, right? And that's just one story. Like there's lots and lots and lots of those stories, right? So I think having communities going in and building these things out. And there's stores and people are like setting up NFT shops and people are gonna sell freaking shoes and all that stuff is a huge part of it, right? Like creating a persistent world that has its own economic drivers or whatever. But you'll have a special spot and gratitude monuments. Like this is kind of one of the reasons why I get happy right now. Like gratitude monuments are everywhere in the Uplift. Like crazy. What? Like did not see that coming. And
for others who are newcomers who come in, they won't really know what that is. They go, they see this kind of cool. They'll see a cathedral. It's pretty cool. They'll go in. Oh, this is a cool cathedral or whatever, right?
Yep.
But then for you, it's like, no, this is more than a cathedral. This is more than a ranch. This is more than just a tower.
Yeah. It's our history. And you can go and see it. Like every single thing we accomplished all year is there. Everybody who's been on the show,
I've done a couple of gratitude posts on there.
I can't freaking talk about this. I'm on my laptop, so this is gonna be like tiny and busted or whatever. But we can't let this conversation go by without doing that. So what are the projects on EOS? Because we're gonna Uplift is gonna have a world on EOS in 2022 sometime. I'm not 100% sure when, but it's like it would be absurd for us not to, frankly. Like even having Atomic and everything else, like
I'm biased, but I would hope so.
Yeah. No, yeah, right. Like it makes so much sense for us to do it. But like, what are there? I mean, and you probably don't want to be biased. I want to ask you, like, who are your favorite babies, right?
Right now, because we're spending time with the working groups. The working groups are something that I feel really proud of because it kind of was my idea and how it all came together. And they're the ones doing the work, and they're the ones going off in a completely autonomous way to figure out what this will be. Just the idea of being able to sprawl that or to be the catalyst for that. I definitely see those as my first babies in as the ENF, the working groups. And so I cannot wait in a month to be able to release the first work of the babies, or like for the babies to take their first steps type of thing. I can't wait to see what the blue papers look like and being able to share them, because the blue papers in themselves mean so much, regardless of what comes out of them, the amount of work that went into them, symbolically, what those will represent, either if this experiment fails or if this if this experiment continues working well and this thing continues functioning, the blue papers will ultimately be like the first very symbolic thing that kind of turned the ship around. So definitely those.
This makes
and I know that's maybe not what you were looking for in terms of like a project, but right? Those are really mine. Which I think it's not mine because they're the ones doing the work, but really, that's my first thing. That,
but I mean, to me, that should increase everybody's confidence in what you're doing and ultimately EOS. Period. Right. So like when starting something or trying to right the ship, what do? You start at the fucking beginning, and the beginning is we don't have a goddamn vision. We're a ship with giant sails that are not put up right now. Right. There's no.
Not even sure we're a ship right now. But
right, like we're sort of floating.
What kind of ship? Do we want to be a ship? Yes. All right. What does ship look like?
But there's without a cohesive vision and a direction, you're going to accomplish nothing, right? And so that's where you started. And instead of just like, I have this idea, instead you put a bunch of teams together, incentivize them to go, okay, what is the coolest shit that's going on in our entire space right now? Where should we go? Where are all the roadblocks of the bumps in the road that we can try and avoid, and come up with like a really, really intense thing? Like that how you've been going for what, like 3 months or 4, whatever it is.
Yeah, I guess 4 at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like that's that's awesome.
Very excited about those, and then it's also showcasing the value of these teams that, for some reason, just like me in a way, we're so masochistic enough to still stay here, to still be here.
Yeah.
Like it really will highlight the skill set that they have and what they've been able to do and what they'll continue doing. And that, for me, is worth just so much. Like it really, ideally, will give hope to a lot of people that what's possible and what we can do with this.
So that over there is the show tower, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So the work one used to just be this tiny little hole where you could go downstairs. Sorry, I'm trying to do this on my trackpad.
That's crazy.
And this goes all the way to the bottom, right? And then
I've never played Minecraft. My cousins play Minecraft. I've never played it. This is just pretty cool. It looks awesome. Even the water looks pretty amazing.
Yeah, you can get shaders that actually make it look really, really good now. So yeah, I mean, this was underwater. Nobody knew it was there except like it was kind of a little secret. And now they put a little Christmas tree.
There's even a Christmas tree.
Yeah. But yeah,
I got a really noob question. I got a super noob question. How the hell do you do this? Like how? Like, so you go, all right, I want a green block, and then you just throw a green block. Like I'm super noob. I've never played this.
No, dude, 1 block at a time. Well, this is a
super noob.
Morton caffeinated Corey fuck the world. That is actually totally true. I've had a lot of coffee today. But yeah. So in creative mode, right? So we have 2 different kinds of worlds: survival and creative. Genesis is creative. It basically means that any kind of block that can be found in Minecraft at all, you could just magic to yourself, right?
Okay.
So you could just kind of run through all the blocks and pick green or pick whatever, arm that up, and then you can place.
Start. Bloop, 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 bloop.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, this is like today. The team's gratitudes from our Tuttle Huddle today was our little team meeting, right? And it's just, I'm grateful for time to breathe. That was mine.
Grateful for a quieter week. Yeah.
Right.
Time for breathing. Yeah.
And yeah, there's those from our entire history, which is kind of intense for us. But yeah, I don't know if you've seen the billboards that we could put up now. That's kind of fun. They're starting to crop up everywhere. We're actually talking
That's an image that you're placing that has a certain resolution that then you need to build the blocks behind to support that.
Yeah, we have huge galleries going up now, like art galleries and NFT galleries and different things like that are just the ability to put those pictures up has been
that's awesome
game changer for sure. All right, doing this with a trackpad. I can't like move and do stuff at the same time, so I have to like turn independently. It's really awesome. Anyways, all right, Yves, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for the community that keeps showing up. I'm grateful for the people that don't let the negativity drown them out. It's easy to get lost. And those people really, keep me going. They give me the strength to keep me going because sometimes it's really difficult. So people don't understand how even just a simple message from time to time, how much that's worth. Like reading the messages and like, good job or whatever. You have no idea how many bad messages I get, and then it's easy to get drowned out, and just a few positive messages make the whole world. It's like positive reviews. You very rarely do people put positive reviews. Well, yeah, that's pretty much my life. Like if I can get those positive reviews, they have no idea how much that means to me. It's pretty amazing, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for the positive reviews. That sounds odd, but that's pretty much what it is.
Dude, that doesn't sound odd at all, man. Like, because this can be. Or I just put that on as me because I literally feel that way too. And like I because I recognize my ego in it. Like I hate that I, want that kind of validation. But like we don't sleep, right? Like I'm actually trying to like figure out in my life for 2022, like. I'm gonna actually take days off where I don't talk about this stuff, right? Or that try.
Hasn't happened in like 3.5 years.
I know. I just like
not even once.
I know. Well, I suppose I should say I'm gonna try because so far I've tried a couple times and totally failed. But yeah, like the having the community just reach out or any individual reach out and go like, hey man, like this specific thing or whatever, positive reviews. I'm fully on board.
Criticism's fine too. Most people have no issues doing criticism.
Oh, that's
so it really goes back to back to like that one positive review makes a big difference because most people will not do the positive reviews when they're happy, but they'll definitely do the negative review when they're not happy.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just wonder, is it, am I really on the right path? And so those messages, those personal messages really, really make it worthwhile. The builders were inventing the future for sure. For sure.
Awesome. Boom. Awesome. I mean, we're up here. What else are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for my wife. You have no idea how much I would not be able to do this if I did not have her support.
I have every idea.
Pretty amazing.
Exactly the
Pretty
same.
Amazing. I don't think you just mentioned non-sleeping. I don't think we've gone to bed together now in a few years in general. Like I'll show up because I usually go to bed around 2 or 3 in the morning, wake up around 6 in the morning when we have 2.5-year-old.
Oh wow.
And so it's basically just work. And then with the pandemic, then I can't even travel, we can't even go out, we can't go anywhere. So it's really just work. That's all we do.
Just throwing a shout out to the Uplift community because there's been so many ups and downs, and like it really is. It's like EOS at a microcosm of EOS because I know EOS is like a much bigger ecosystem.
The same, right? It's just with this the world of everything being instant.
Yeah,
you get so much interaction in such a short period of time. Like I was talking to somebody the other day about Apple and how, or traditional company, they do their releases or they do an event every, let's say 3 months or 4 months or something like that. And then a huge event every year. But in between, it's not like you get to speak to the people at Apple every single day and you have a private chat with them, like hundreds of people, and then all of the people that work at Apple, and they all communicate daily. And like, hey, Corey, you haven't given me an update in 2 hours. What have you been doing in the last 2 hours?
Yeah.
Like, well, I've been working on like X, Y, or Z or something like that, right? That doesn't happen in the traditional world. But for some reason in the blockchain space, that's the reality.
Yeah.
It's literally like 24/7, 365. And when there's no communication for an hour, 2 hours, people are like, what have you been doing, Corey? It's like, I went to the washroom and I actually had my phone when I went to the washroom. I took a shower. I bring my phone in the shower with me. I'm like, I'm in the shower. I'm literally texting you while I'm in the shower right now. Can I just wash my hair? That'd be kind of cool. I haven't washed it in a couple of days. But that's really inherent to blockchains. And I think that's what's so powerful about community. People, I hear that the community is really not, really doesn't have the power or anything. I call bullshit on that. It's not true. This really is a nonstop interactive thing. Everybody's, people say, I didn't know about this. It was released 3 hours ago. Nobody knew about this 3 hours ago. It's live, as it's happening. It's not like it's been worked on for a year. It literally is being created while you're looking at it. Yeah, but I didn't know about it 3 hours ago when you first posted it. Yeah. It's pretty
well,
crazy.
And I think like we've set the, and for the record, I'm like taking snapshots. I've never actually seen this myself, so I'm like
pretty nice.
ogling this. Anyway, yeah, just like the galleries that are popping up, and you see the QR codes on all these pictures. They either connect back to the NFTs or
Okay, don't move. I'm gonna try to scan it.
Yeah, do it. Should work.
Will it work? Yeah. Instagram link.
Cool. All right.
That particular one. All right, where is it taking me? Jen Weissenbacher.
There you go.
I apologies for potentially screwing up your name. She's got amazing artwork. She's from Germany, or I believe she's from Germany. Buhr, Nordrhein-Westfalen, Germany. She's got amazing artwork. It's very cool.
This must be the there's I think this might be the Rocket Gallery. Oh, this is Vine. See, I haven't even seen this before, man. Like, so there's a guy who's creating something called the Rocket Gallery, and he basically just been promoting artists, right? Like, he's not trying to sell NFTs or whatever. He's just like platforming artists inside his gallery. And then he actually made another one called the Cube Gallery, which I haven't seen yet. But that just reminded me of it. But it's basically like immersive interactive art. He basically told the artist, like, I'm gonna put a picture up, inside of a cube, so you could fill that cube with whatever you want to fill that cube with, right? And so like artists are starting from this medium and working backwards to fill it up and to really start to explore what's possible. Yeah, man. Anyway.
It's crazy. Is this just regular? New question again. Is this just regular Minecraft that you're in, or is this a special Minecraft?
No, it's regular. I mean, it's like it's actually, and it's downgraded, right? Because they upgrade Minecraft every like 6 months to a year, and if we use that, we'd have to like rebuild all of our plugins and shit like that. So you have to downgrade a couple of versions to make it work. But yeah, it's just normal now. And again, like anybody who gets in there, the researching if you have like a decent computer, most people do now if they're on Minecraft or whatever, the shaders that you can get, like you can make vanilla Minecraft look like Unreal, which is pretty fun. Huge shout out to Good Times with Mello. Mello's one of the most accomplished builders. Him and his buddy, business partner TC, they actually have a construction company inside the Uplift. So if you get land and you want something built, just tell them what you want. And they're busy. Yeah, they're busy. Yeah,
I want a cathedral, or I want a bar. I want whatever it is.
Yeah. Yep.
I guess people get really good at this.
They do.
Like really good. Well, I mean, just looking at what's there, what you had there is like definitely skill set. If you throw me in there, there's no way I'm building anything.
I said the same. I said the same thing. Like if you go from, and I still suck, but like the having a basic. We basically just built the original cathedral around some gratitude monuments, right? Like we had one gratitude monument up there. It was the first one. I knew we needed more, and so let's build a building. And then it's like, well, we should obviously like create this entire building so that it lines up with the sunrise, because that's kind of interesting, right? Which kind of iterated from there, but it's blocky and ridiculous, and but it works. And then with the cathedral, I just Googled how to make a dome, and then died many times because I didn't know you could build in creative. Like had scaffolding the whole 9 yards, and put close to 60,000 blocks down one at a time to build a dome.
And you needed to build scaffolding in order to build your dome because you weren't in the creative mode,
right?
And so you probably built your own scaffolding as well using blocks 100%. In order to.
What? Yep. And
in survival, my cousins get lost in this, and all they do every time I see them, they're in the room. And
in survival worlds, you have to do that. And actually, most of the busiest worlds now in the Uplift are survival worlds, and we've got a whole working economy now, right? In Genesis, where the builds we were just at, where you can magic yourself whatever you want. That's super fun. To build anything like that in survival, you have to either mine that block, build that block, or now buy that block with Upliftium. Because we actually have shops so that people are now making pretty good money, actually, like making glass, for example. Like they'll mine or get a bunch of sand and then bake it all, create some glass, and then put that glass on sale. And then, a team like Melos will come by and buy all their glass for a big project. Dude, man, there's this build, ship in a bottle. I'll send you the video of it. and it's in a survival world, and it's built on like a winter biome, right? Everybody thought it was like built in an ocean. Things like, oh, because like it's kind of tough to figure out what to do if you like luck out and get an ocean plot, right? That it's kind of harder to build on in survival. But they built like I don't know, it's like a giant life size for your Minecraft person or whatever, right? Ship, and then they built the bottle around it. But they brought in like all of the tropical ocean biome stuff. So there's like every colorful fish you can imagine, all the different colors of coral inside the bottle. It's massive. It's massive, and they did it all in survival. Like I don't know, like they had to have.
Survival means like you've got one life and that's it, or
no? Survival means basically that you every piece of resource that you get has to be mined or purchased, right? But you can die. There's like at nighttime, all the bad guys come out and you die, and it's really frustrating. But when you die, you basically just go back to your place. We don't have it so that you lose all the stuff that you're carrying. Which is good for me because I fucking suck. When I finally have a little estate. We started doing like basically bundles of land in this last little phase 1 sale we did for the gratitude map. And so I bought like a little estate, and I'm now I have a tree farm where I plant birch trees right next to a little blue flower, which kind of has become a little bit significant across some parts of the uplift. And we only harvest during sunrise. And this birch is on sale specifically so that people can buy that kind of birch and build gratitude monuments out of it, right? And we're just kind of playing around with that idea. But when I first started in there a couple weeks ago, I basically needed armed guards, right? Like Mello came in and was hanging out. Mitzi, who's created these hotels and like all these story arcs, like people basically just showed up from all over the uplift just to protect my baby ass, because every single time the sun goes down, I would just get murdered over and over and over again.
Oh my God.
It was awesome. Yeah, so we finally, like in survival, you basically have to get like a bunch of light up and protect it and build walls because all the bad guys kind of show up at night or whatever, right? But
it's what the world that we were in earlier, I didn't see any bad guys, but it was nighttime.
No, that's yeah. So that's a creative map. So we have two different kinds of maps. You can buy land in Genesis where it's just creative, great for just artists or building shops or whatever you want to do, right? But there's no real gamification of that, right? Whereas in the survival worlds, you start with nothing, right? You can go and buy some stuff, or you can go and mine it, create your own tools, and kind of bootstrap up from nothing. And yeah, I mean, now the economy around that. I mean, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was pretty ridiculous. I think it was like 90 or 100 million Upliftium worth of transactions in the first couple of weeks.
And how much is that worth in like valuation in fiat?
Roughly. I think it was about 10 grand.
It was like 10 grand of economic activity within a few months where people are just
in the, no. In the first like 10 to 14 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And people are
still
figuring out that it exists. Wow. Right. I need all this glass because I'm going to build a giant ship and put it in a bottle because fuck you. Let's why not?
And then they don't want. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
I mean, and for all I know, they might have actually built all the pieces to do that. I have no idea. But if it was me, I would have gone out and just bought it all. Because
how does it hash to the blockchain? How does the blockchain come into this?
I mean, that's so basically you can withdraw Upliftium. It's all like internal game token, right? But you can withdraw it as an NFT. And then Kate on Wax created tokenized NFT where basically you can send that NFT in and it'll spit out a million Liftium token. And then you can take that to Alcor and it basically is all over the system. So like on our side, because we really, Uplift got acquired really, really early on. And there's a lot of hesitation around tokens. Let's put it that way. I will say, they're reversing that is part of the story for 2022. Anyways,
cool. A little nugget drop there.
All right. So you can take it out as an NFT, buy, sell it on Atomic, for $1 million Upliftium or whatever. But then really taking it over to Alcor means that you can basically pick up, as much Upliftium as you want, which is awesome now. Because I mean that 10 million Upliftium will get you one of those portals, so that you can like build, really ease of transportation between different plots or projects that you're partnered with and stuff. So
cool.
Yeah. It's fun.
I'm gonna have to figure that out. So how would I participate? Like, did I download Minecraft? Stupid noob question. Like, what do I?
No.
I have no idea.
Like on theUpLift.world, the website, there's a getting started link, and it's really detailed, right? But basically, you need Minecraft Java, and then you need to either own a piece of land NFT, or you get whitelisted to somebody else's plot. And so, like, if you want, like, I'll give you one. Like, just fire me your Wax address, and I'll send you one of my pieces of land.
I'm gonna have to read through this website to figure out what I need to do.
No, it's like get Minecraft Java,
download,
and then it's basically go to multiplayer on Minecraft and put in. I can get you the link. I think it's like the Metaverse.world for the link or whatever. Oh, excuse me. Anyway, yeah, there's like 5 or 6 steps, which is still, for the record, too much friction. But the amount of stuff that people can do with it is.
But if people already play Minecraft, then I guess a lot of the steps are already done.
Yeah.
Or just one step is not minus, which is the installing the Minecraft, or because I already obviously have my Wax account. I know how to use that. I already know how to use Atomic, etc. I've never played the Minecraft part.
Yeah, it's really.
I've been playing computer games in a really long time. I just haven't had the time.
Yeah, just don't consider this a computer game. This is like research for work.
Still a computer game.
But like actually true, which is kind of fun. Yeah, so effectively, once you have the land NFT, we need to match your land NFT with your Minecraft user account, right? So you go to enter.theuplift.world and basically connect those two so that our system knows that your Minecraft account is connected to your Wax account, and so we could see what land is yours and handle, all that stuff. And then of course the rewards thing too, right? I mean, every minute that you're playing in world, we're paying Wax and Upliftium. So
So that's why people are always in this as well. That's why Corey, even in the background, is like, all right, I'm just going to minimize this, but I'm still in the world.
I don't do that anywhere near enough. I let other people do that.
Can you? Or do you have to be active?
No, you have. No, it's not about time in game. It's about actions, right? And gotcha. When we first started, it was just travel. And so basically like a bunch of goofball zombies were just like, riding around on the rail absentmindedly, not doing anything. And so we basically, for season 2, we said, we're not actually going to tell you what actions give you points that ultimately will give you Wax and Upliftium. And we actually switched it so that like if you own land and anybody's playing on your land or traveling across your land or coming to see your land or whatever, you're actually getting paid 20% of that. And we actually flipped the Upliftium one, so it's actually 80% goes to the landowner now and 20% goes to the player.
Cool.
Yeah, so incentivizing people to build experiences, right? I mean, that's the
whole, it's not about community, like we said, right? The more you can incentivize your community to participate, then the better your world gets. The more community wants to participate, and just start feeding that wheel.
Yep,
that's awesome.
Yeah, building value and having the community do it, and setting incentives. It's almost like you've heard all this before.
It's almost like yeah, for you. And that's the cool thing about the blockchain is you're able to do that, and then there's no trust from that point of view, right? It's not like I just trust me. I'll send you some Wax, or just trust me when you do this will happen.
You have to show it. That's for sure been the thing from the like, and I wish that I guess they don't care, right? Like for Block One, like they're sitting on $4 billion. Like they don't give a shit, right? Like
asset management company now. They've changed. It's different, which is okay. I mean, it's not okay. It's not great, obviously. It's not okay. But it's from their side of, yeah, exactly. From their point of view, they've been extremely successful. It's pretty amazing. Like from their point of view, it's pretty amazing. The Block One shareholders must be incredibly happy.
Yeah, they're not upset.
Block One board is doing an amazing job for their shareholders. We're not the shareholders. The EOS token holders are not shareholders. And then that break should have happened a very long time ago, where if really they had, this is the part that's not great, they really were honest, they could have just said, you know what, we really don't care anymore. We've changed. It's okay. Just move on. But no, it was we'll just pretend like we still care for the longest time. And they do. I think some people within the company and some people, but the machine as a whole, it's obvious that they don't care.
and I think once
It's
you
not
have
the people themselves. It's not
right.
that even, let's say, Brendan himself. It's the machine itself, the
I
total sum of the parts.
again, as a microcosm, I've seen those kinds of incentives produce similar results, right? Which is working in the projects that I've been involved in this year, right? So it makes total sense to me that once you are interacting where your incentive structure is designed to do XYZ, well, that XYZ is not fulfilling a promise that you wrote down even or whatever. Again, to your point, even if you believe it, right? Like the meetings that they're in are all about, okay, well, regulation this and government that and shareholders that, and like the
At the end of
pressures
the day,
they're
it's
under are
making
going to
money
stem
for
from
the
that.
shareholders, right?
Right.
Blockchain was born out of the 1%, 99% Wall Street, traditional finance, traditional old world, etc. It was really born out of trying to move away from that, and Block One kind of became that. Maybe not to the fault of their own. That maybe was not their intention, but at some point there was a tipping point. At some point, the flip occurred, and then the narrative though continued, and it keeps stringing people along. Again, maybe not on purpose, but at some point there was a conscious, I think, knowledge that this was occurring, and still to this date, Block One has never really acknowledged that. And there's no way that at this point they don't know, like that's bullshit, called bullshit.
Yeah.
But the community now is moving on. The network is moving on. I think every Block One has congratulated. EOS is essentially the one, if not the, but one of the largest DAOs that currently exist, and it's in the hands of the community now. It really is.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure at all. Speaking of that, I'm gonna have to let you go.
Thank you for giving me so much time,
at this
man.
time because my son was taking a nap. It's Christmas break, and so.
Dude, Eve, thank you so much for spending
time for him to wake up.
Yeah, get out of here, and thank you again for everything that you're doing, and even just for being an example that I hope a lot more people follow in 2022. Like, if you see an issue, like, don't complain about it. Fucking fix it.
Thank you. It's hard.
It's not easy, and you won't sleep, and it's like people will complain the whole
sleeping
time.
anyways because I have a 2.5-year-old. But yes, this is at least now I'm not sleeping, and I'm doing something while I'm not sleeping.
There you go. All right, have a very Merry Christmas, and we'll chat with you in 2022.
Peace.
All right, ciao.